In this lesson, we're going to pick up where we left off in the last by adding the little shade above the headlight. So let's get started. Left viewport, L for left. Get exit isolation from earlier. And what we're going to do, we're going to try a different technique because I've been showing you spline's quite effective. And go down to this edit poly, and let's go to the polygon level. And select some polygons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the midway point. You want to do 7 on the other side. Okay, so we have that selection, and we're going to shift and drag it forward a little bit. And we're going to clone it to a new object. I'm going to call it light underscore shade dash 01. Okay, now we can go back to the top of the stack. We're going to actually select the new part. Oops, sorry, there we go. We're going to do a pivot align because right now the pivot's aligned to the old object, so effect pivot, center the object. Just turn off effect pivot again. And now, with this new object, we're going to select the polygons, all of them. They're still selected. What we're going to do is we're going to just extrude them forward. Okay, and you see the end right here of the shade. We're going to just extend it to full length. Click check mark for OK. Left viewport. It's pretty close. Let's Alt and X. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Create Panel. I'm going to choose Line. And I'm just going to make a diagonal line that I can use to kind of align my vertices when I move them to make that shape. Click twice, right click out, turn off the line tool. Okay. And now what we're going to do is select the shade once again, vertex sub object level. And we're going to do this manually. There are scripts to align vertices to a spline, which are really, really handy, but unfortunately with Max 2012, I found that the script wasn't working so good. So for this exercise, we're going to just do this manually. So let's get started. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Get the move tool, and just align these vertices to that spline that we just drew. That's good. We can zoom in even more. Just pull this back. That worked. Deselect one of them. This one can go back a little bit more. And right down the line, you're just going to manually move the vertices. Make sure you don't have ignore back facing on because you'll be doing twice as much work. And down a little further. So it's just handy to have that spline. I mean, you can see it in the blueprint, but the blueprint may get a little degraded, which is what's happening here. So by using this line, I have an explicit guide that I can just take these vertices and match them up to that particular line and get a smooth shape. So that's what we're doing. I mean, you know, it's a little intensive, but it took us less than a minute, so I think it's worth it. Let's move this back. Let's zoom out. And there you have like a perfect slice. You could have also actually used the slice modifier or the quick slice and done the same thing, but I think that's a good way just to show you. You can use meshes or lines as guides all the time, and it's a good way, like if you need to make a circle and we didn't use a conform technique, you can have a base object that you model around to use as like a guide for your mesh. So Alt and X. You can see the shade is shaped the way it should be. Let's hit F4. A little segmented, and there's a little gap here. I'm going to go to align pivot again, and because the object is now thicker, I'm going to affect the pivot center to object, goes to the middle, turn off effect pivot. I'm going to just nudge that back a little, just like that. That looks good. And I'm also going to come in here. I think we're going to do some chamfering on the leading edge so it'll catch light a little better. I'm going to do it on an edit poly again just so I can undo it if I don't like the way it looks. So we have an edit poly now in the stack. We go to edge, select this edge and that edge, and Alt L to loop select. There we go. And now I'm going to roll down. We'll do a chamfer. The value looks a little large right now, so right click it out, zeros down, and just click and drag with your mouse. I think that looks good. I say OK. And do the same down here. Now we can't do a loop selection on these edges because there's an n-gon polygon behind them. So the loop selection doesn't seem to work when that situation arises. So just select those 6 edges. Roll in a little bit with the mouse wheel, zoom in. Let's do a chamfer on these edges a little. And let's add one more segment. That's good. Looks clean. Hit OK. And we'll back out a little bit. And let's, above this edit poly, let's add a smooth modifier. You can see that workflow has been used quite a bit in the tutorial. It's effective. We're not subdividing, and it makes the mesh look good. There we go. And again, we could always come back if we had to and add more detail, but as soon as we're a certain distance away, that's an acceptable mesh. It looks really good. So last thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take those supports we built earlier. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We're going to move them so that they in some way touch that light. So let's get both, move them in. They're actually, missed that. They're actually closer than I had thought earlier. Roughly aligned to that edge of the light on each side. And that's good. And I'm going to select both, make sure they're both selected. I'm going to nudge them up a little. Again, you know, unless someone's looking at your blueprint, they don't know that things are a little bit different. So with the time constraint, it's a good idea. Just, you know, what's acceptable and what will the audience know is valid and believable. It's not about making a perfect train, unless again we're making it for a train museum or something of that type. So with that said, I'm going to pause the video, and in the next video I'm going to make the little plate that goes in front of this headlight, and we're going to detach the front lens.